Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rita Oliveira, and I'm part of the Nova SPE Executive Education team as Program Advisor. For the last 20 years, we have been trying to future-proof our companies, but now we know it's not just impossible, it's wrong. Rui Coutinho is going to discuss how the future-driven companies are leading their own disruption and building the next legacy. But first, let me introduce Rui Coutinho. Rui is a keynote speaker, author, professor, and expert in corporate innovation strategy and organizational transformation. He is the executive director at Nova SBE Innovation Ecosystem, an adjunct professor of innovation at Nova School of Business and Economics. Next year, he will launch his new book titled The Next Legacy, an innovation metabolism for the future-driven company. During the last 25 years, Rui has advised and worked with companies all over the world, like IKEA, Ford, Generali, Novo Banco, Sips, Philip Morris International, Sograp, among others. He was also founder of Porter Design Factory and Scale Up Porto. Later, we will have time to answer your questions. For questions, please use the Q&A feature in the menu bar on your screen during the presentation, and we will answer at the end. Good afternoon, Rui.
Hey, hi everybody. It's great to have you on board, and it's great to be here. So let me just start sharing the screen. I hope that everybody will be able to see my slides and have this conversation. Let me also put this into full screen mode, sorry. And here we are. Hope that everybody is seeing. So let's talk a little bit about the future-proof company and why we believe that even though it has been important for the past decades from a management standpoint to try to future-proof our organizations, our hypothesis here today for this webinar, and this is something that we have been researching and working at the innovation ecosystem here at Nova School of Business and Economics, and also in my work, professional practitioner work and academic work. This is something that we believe that needs to evolve. And actually, more than evolve, I do really believe that we need to kill the future-proof company. And I'll try, or we'll try to make this case and have this discussion with you guys. And hopefully this will trigger some disagreements, most likely, but also some questions. And we'll have a discussion later at the end. Well, Rita has already introduced me exhaustively. Thank you, Rita, for that. So guys, let's take a trip down memory lane, okay? And let's go back to the fundamental management principles that we have been using in our companies for the last 3 decades, most likely. And we still love to teach Jack Welch at our MBAs and our Masters in Management. And in fact, Jack Welch, in some sense, well, Jack Welch was the chairman and the CEO of General Electric back in the 80s. And he created, in some sense, the concept of the future-proof company. And the fundamental principle beneath the idea of the future-proof company was actually very well portrayed in this sentence. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, then the end is near. This means that we have to monitor everything around us. We have to pay attention to the things that might have the capacity to disrupt us, and we need to change internally at least as fast as everything around us changes. And so that is the only way we can avoid disruption, and we will do everything in our power. This means even having the capacity to change from within to avoid disruption. And this is the overall idea of becoming future-proof. Becoming future-proof means being protected from the future. And this is the thing that I really think that no longer applies, and we think it's wrong. Okay, so I'll try to explain why, and I'll show you some evidence. This slide is inspired by InnoSight's corporate longevity forecasts. InnoSight every single year analyzes the performance of the S&P 500. It's one of the indicators of the 500 most valuable companies in the world, and they have been, monitoring the evolution, the trends, what is going on in terms of market value growth or decrease since mid-60s. And the most impressive insight that we can collect, it's actually here in this slide, is that the average longevity of a company in the S&P 500 is decreasing in an accelerated way. In the mid-70s, on average, a company would last at almost 40 years as one of the 500 most valuable companies in the world. And fast forward to today, or even for a few years to come, and that average longevity moves from 40 years to more or less 15 years, okay? This is a decrease in the time to relevance, in the time to value. And of course, when a company is not able to stay for a longer period of time as one of the 500 most valuable companies in the world, this means that their business is shrinking. And if the business and if the value is shrinking, the business is shrinking, the organization will shrink. And when the organization shrinks, we know what this means. So, and to go deeper in the analysis to the InnoSight report, we can actually find three main trends that are driving disruption at the S&P 500. One, it's obvious to everyone. We don't need to have an MBA to understand that, is that digital technology platforms continue to shift massive market value. So it's still about the ownership of the technology, the capacity to develop technology, the capacity to incorporate technology, and more particularly digital technology. We all can understand that. This comes back from the first industrial revolution, and that continues to drive that market value. But if we pay closer attention, there are two additional insights that we believe are critical and that we need to pay more attention, because they are not business as usual anymore. The second one is the imperative of the business model innovation. It's not just the companies that have the technology, that have the capacity to develop the technology, the capacity to incorporate the technology that perform better, are mainly the ones that use those technologies to create outstanding business models. It's the way we deliver value to our clients and the way we capture value from our clients using digital technologies that is really driving this disruption. An example, there's nothing substantially sophisticated on, let's say, Uber technology or Airbnb's technology. It's the business model that is absolutely transformative. And they even operate in very old markets, as in we need to move from A to B, or as we need to have a bed and a bedroom to sleep in. So it's the business model that is transformative. It's the way the value proposition is made available to the clients and the way we capture value from the clients. And the companies that show the capacity, not just to own the technology, but to translate that technology into outstanding business models, they are the ones that are performing better. But I will call your attention to a third insight that comes from this report, and it shows us interesting things. It's that the companies that are performing better, the companies that are cracking that longevity trap that we just saw, the decrease, the shrinking of the value, are the ones that are capable not only of delivering outstanding viability today. They are not just great at, paying salaries, distributing profits this year. It's the ones that are also involved deliberately and strategically in creating, exploring the things that will pay salaries and distribute profits in the future. And they assume that it won't be the same thing. So it's your capacity, it's the company's capacity for continual systematic innovation, the capacity to be outstanding today, but also promising to the market that they will be able to be outstanding in the future, assuming that whatever will be the competitiveness or the viability of the future, most likely will not be the same as it is today. Think, for instance, of companies like Microsoft, and I promise you that I will not use all these big examples, but let me give you the example of Microsoft. Go back 17 years to 2007, when Microsoft was one of the 10 most valuable companies in the world, and when they were fundamentally disrupted by the iPhone. People tend to think that the iPhone disrupted Nokia and things like that, but if you pay close attention, it was the personal computer business that was disrupted. The sales of hardware, of desktops, remember them, of laptops decreased substantially. This is the moment when IBM accelerates its path towards extinction until they sold their business to Lenovo. It's the moment when Compaq and HP had to merge and all these things. And what was inside of all these computers? Microsoft Windows and their Office suite. In 2007, Microsoft was one of the 10 most valuable companies in the world by selling software in a B2B2C model. Fast forward today, and what you see is that Microsoft is still one of the top 10 most valuable companies. However, their technologies and their business models are 180 degrees different. They are currently a software as a service company on a cloud-based enterprise model for software. The only similarity with what they were doing in 2007 is that we still use the expressions or the brands Windows, Office, Word, PowerPoint. It's fundamentally different. And what we can see is that Microsoft dominated the technologies and kept on developing the technologies. They were able to evolve in their business model, but they did it by having a very strong and solid innovation strategy that was not only capable of delivering value every single moment, but they were always also capable of exploring and building what would deliver value in the future. The interesting thing is that from 2007, the moment the iPhone was launched, until today, Microsoft never once, even for 1 week, stopped being one of the 10 most valuable companies in the world. It's this relevance, it's this stability. It's a very boring story of innovation, but I feel it's the most interesting story of innovation. What I'm saying is that Microsoft is breaking this trap. At this current and forecasted turnover rate, nearly 50% of the current S&P 500 will be replaced in the next 10 years. This means that half of the companies on the indicator will be replaced. They will lose value. They will not grow as they imagine. So the fundamental challenge at this moment is to break this trap. Now let's bring this down to closer to our reality, the reality of 99% of people and companies. When you are in smaller companies, okay? The principle is exactly the same. The forces of disruption and our capacity to deal with those forces of disruption will indicate not just the way we are able to protect our current legacy, but especially will be determined by the way we will build our next legacy. So this is the problem that we have ahead. And this is why the future-proof company is not enough. Because disruption is no longer this eventuality. You know, Jack Welch did everything he could to avoid disruption. But for Jack Welch and for General Electric in the 80s, disruption pretty much came from two different places. It could come from technology. The way technology evolves, our competitors are using that technology, adopting technology, the way machines are replacing humans and we are more productive and more efficient, all of that. And then you would have to monitor economy. Are we in a growth period or are we in a recession period? And at that moment, those periods of economic growth or economic decline were more or less well identifiable. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And you know, today, it's not like that anymore. Just let me give you my example. I went on summer holidays in late July. And the week before I went on summer holidays, the Bank of Portugal released their forecast for until the end of the year, analyzing the first semester. And what they were saying, more or less, in a very simplified way, was this. Things are going better than we expect. Inflation is under control. The government's forecast for growth most likely will happen. Things are much better than we tend to think. Okay, and then I went for a summer holiday. And then I came back 2 weeks later, and the Bank of Portugal was releasing a report saying, yeah, things might not be as good as we expected, because apparently in July, the consumer behavior changed and whatever, and then the inflation is not controlled, and growth might not happen, and we will be in recession, or at least Europe will be in recession in 2024. What happened? I just went on holiday. I even regretted going on holiday because, things were going well, and 2 weeks later they were not so well. So disruption becomes this way of life. Disruption becomes embedded in our every single day. Things are uncertain, things are ambiguous, and they will continue to be. If you're waiting for things to settle down, sit down, because you will have a long time waiting. Disruption is here to stay. It's part of our lives. The interesting thing about this slide, it's the fine print. It's the fine letters over there. Take a look at the year these figures are from. 2018. I still keep this slide because if in 2018, 63% of companies were already under disruption, can you imagine today? Remember, close your eyes and think what happened in our lives just in the last 5 years. Accenture even eventually gave up on publishing this disruptability index. It's not measurable anymore. It's 100%. It's happening. It's happening every single day. So thinking that we will avoid disruption, because if we pay good attention to what's going on in the economy and what's going on in technology, and then we hire consulting teams and we buy market studies and we do all of that, and we become future-proof, we become prepared for this, well, I think it's pointless, because disruption comes from lots of different places. This is the 11 sources of disruption from Amy Webb. I actually added a 12th one, which was consumer behavior, which was one that was not on the original paper of Amy. And what she's saying is that, yeah, disruption is coming from lots of different places and spaces and industries and topics that we never thought would disrupt us in our lifetime. We didn't think that public health would be a source of disruption in our lifetime, right? We thought that we had that, solved. It was a problem for the underdeveloped countries, right? Not. We thought that geopolitics in Europe, we had learned our lesson. However, it's almost 2 years now, or a year and a half, almost 2 years of war in Ukraine, right? And I'm not even talking about what's going on in the Middle East, because it was always a source of disruption. But think, for instance, of demographics, and how demographics are having a strong impact, will have a strong impact in our businesses. If you are running a company in Portugal, and for the Portuguese market, you should pay attention to demographics, because the population is decreasing, and also simultaneously the age pyramid has been inverted. We now have more older people than we have younger people. That might have an impact on your business, right? Think of environment. Environment is the biggest source of disruption, and we will have to deal with it, even if we are refusing to do so in a structured or a scalable way. Think of media and telco. Mark Zuckerberg only wanted to meet girls in Harvard. He never thought that he would, rig democratic elections in sophisticated countries like the US and things like that. So we can go on and on and on and on. But the point here is that the rate of technological change, the rate of disruption is higher and faster than the rate of institutional change. We will always change slower inside our companies than everything around us changes. So you see the gap there between the rate of change needed to avert crisis and the rate of institutional change that we are capable of implementing. And that's urgent innovation space that you see there, it's actually your biggest nightmare. It's actually what will disrupt you. Now you have two alternatives and two possibilities. You try to avoid, and you cry, and you see the glass half empty, and this will destroy us. Oh, it's a threat. Or, as I prefer, in a more optimistic way, this is the urgent innovation space. This is the opportunity space. And for us to take advantage of the opportunity space, we cannot try to avoid disruption. We need to lead disruption. So Jack Welch is wrong. It's not if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside. It's when. It's not a possibility we will avoid. It becomes an inevitability, and we must win it. So being future-proof is wrong, and it's wrong, and it's impossible, because we will not be able to change internally as fast as everything around us changes. So we need to, break this trap, right? We need to find better ways of not only, protecting our current legacy. Perhaps to protect our current legacy, future-proof can be enough. If we future-proof our organization, it's like you take a vaccine and you get immune to the future. It might work for a couple of years. Well, it might even work for a decade in less, in more stable industries, but it will not guarantee sustainability. It will not guarantee longevity. So we need to understand that disruption eats legacy for breakfast. Our legacy is outstanding. We should be proud of it. We need to honor it. But the best way to honor the legacy in our companies is not just trying to protect us from the future. It's embracing that future. It's becoming future-driven, not future-proof. This means that we need to experiment with the future. This means that for us to build the next legacy, we need to start making decisions not only informed by the past, but also informed by the future. What do I mean? We make decisions informed by the past. This is how we make decisions. We, read market studies and try to read the predictions and the forecasts. All of them are based in the past. We even use data to make decisions. Data is a portrait of the past. Oh, but we build algorithms that can go for predictive and prescriptive and all of that, still based on the past. They are important, they are good, but they are not sufficient. We need to combine also the capacity to, collect data from the future and bring those insights into our decision making. So what do I mean by collecting data from the future? It's our capacity to experiment with the future. Remember the third insight from the corporate longevity report, the continual systematic innovation. James March from Stanford put it in the best possible way. Our basic challenge is not only to exploit our current viability, it's at the same time we need to devote enough energy to explore to ensure our future viability. Exploit means past, means making sure that we are best in class at doing what we do today, right? But explore requires the capacity to envision futures, to experiment with those futures, and to make decisions that are also informed by what we learn from that future. It requires different things, guys. It requires really different things. And you have been hearing a lot, most likely, about the ambidextrous organizations and so on. And yeah, it connects with that. It's because we build companies, future-proof companies, to protect the current legacy. So it's about managing the existing. We perform better when the uncertainty is lower. We look for safe havens on our investments, and we want solid and steady returns on investments. We go for predictability, minimum failure, and we need to be great at organizing and planning. All of that is essential. We need to be that, but we can't just be that. At the same time, we also need to be capable of creating the new, of performing on topics, spaces, technologies, markets, possibilities that have higher degrees of uncertainty. We, instead of looking for return on investment, we also need to look for return on learning. We need to experiment. We need to embrace speed. We need to learn fast, which is very different from failing fast. I hate failing. I do everything in my capacity to avoid failure. I just accept that inevitably I will fail. So I want to learn fast. That mantra of fail fast, fail often, I hate it. For me, it's learn fast, learn often, and very often unlearn and then relearn again, right? So we need to also be explorers who excel with uncertainty. In and with uncertainty. This is a fundamental change in the nature of innovation and our perception. of innovation. Because normally people think that innovation is about taking risks. Well, guys, if you love taking risks, go to the casino. If you hate risk, you innovate. We need to innovate exactly to de-risk our future. We need to innovate exactly because we can't live permanently in a situation where the external forces lead us where they want us to go. We can't live in a situation where our company is not protected from those external forces. And thinking that we can be immune to them and that is the best way to protect us, being future-proof, is wrong. We need to embrace them. We need to face them. It's like the kids, you know, when you send the kids to the kindergarten and eventually they get sick. And when they get sick again, and then they get sick again, and you know what happened? They learn and they build their defense systems, right? It's the same. It's not just putting the kid in a bubble that will protect. You know, I don't want to put my company in a bubble, because in a bubble, the day the bubble bursts, we are out of business. So I want to be outside the bubble. Don't want to be future-proof. I want to be future-driven exactly to de-risk my future. You know, if you find the level of risk acceptable at this stage, good, great, you know. But if you don't find this level of risk of being disrupted from the outside acceptable, you need a contingency plan. You need an insurance policy. In my dictionary, contingency plan, insurance policies are called innovation strategies, future-driven innovation strategies. And this means that innovation's role changes in some circumstances. We innovate to de-risk, and we innovate as intermediaries between the strategy and the business. Let's be clear, guys. Innovation doesn't deliver value directly. Innovation doesn't deliver bottom line. Innovation doesn't pay the salaries. Innovation doesn't distribute profits. It's the business lines. It's the business units, the operations, the production, the logistics, the sales, the marketing. That's where the value is created. However, our business units, business departments, operational departments, call it what you want, they are great and typically they excel when they operate on the things that they know, on the pathways where uncertainty and risks are lower, okay? In that circumstance, innovation just needs, you know, to support, you know, be there and enable whenever they need. Innovation doesn't take the lead, but this is the current legacy. For the current legacy, innovation doesn't take the lead. Innovation is important to support incremental gains, you know, efficiency, productivity, and even immediate profitability. But innovation is an enabler and a supporter. However, when you go for the next legacy, when you need to explore with the future, when you want to be future driven, you need innovation to go in front, to de-risk, you know, to fall before everyone else falls, to experiment before everyone else experiments. It's like the Sherpa that goes, and the guides of our colleagues that just climbed to the Kilimanjaro. Those guides are the first ones to see the problems, to see the obstacle, to understand what is the necessary adaptation in all circumstances. But they do that with what objective? As soon as possible, de-risk that initiative, that product, that service, that business model, whatever, de-risk it to the point where business is already comfortable and taking the lead. So we innovate. Innovation becomes an intermediary between strategy and business. For what? To de-risk. To de-risk our future-driven strategy. The most important part of this slide, guys, is the arrows, okay? It's the arrows, because innovation is not a thing that a specific department should do. It's not that bunch of privileged people that, you know, don't have to worry about the day-to-day KPIs and are, you know, have the freedom to do whatever they want. It's not that. Innovation needs to coordinate, collaborate, orchestrate, communicate with every single department in the company. In the future-driven company, innovation lives in a polyamorous relationship with everyone. You need to flirt, you need to negotiate, you need to persuade, you need to convince. But more importantly, innovation becomes a mindset. Innovation becomes a way of working. This means that who is the innovation team of the future-driven company? Everybody. And the CEO is just the first innovator. Okay, so we innovate to de-risk. It's a team sport that requires that delivers an interface between the strategy and the businesses when the risk is too high, when uncertainty is too high, or when our internal know-how is too low for us to immediately jump into that possibility, hypothesis, technology, market, etc., etc., etc. So this requires change in the organization. Jack Welch was right about that. You need to change. It's your capacity to change. The problem is that you don't change to avoid being disrupted. You change to lead your own disruption, right? And this is a change. It's a new way of thinking about our companies. It's a new way of managing our companies. And I think, and I claim for an innovation CRISPR. We need to go to our DNA of the company and edit the DNA of the company, the deep systems. It's not just about building an outstanding innovation team. Go ahead, you should do it, but it will not be enough. You can have the right people, the best people in the world working on innovation with great budget, with outstanding tools and methodologies, and still the critical success factors of that innovation will rely much more on other aspects of the company and not so much about the capacity of the innovation team. It's about the metabolism of the company. I'll ask you to make this analogy with our own bodies. You know, companies are not abstract entities. They are human endeavors. They are built of people. You know, they are human constructions in some sense. And so companies also have a metabolism. A metabolism, just biology 101, is what our body does to transform everything we put inside our body into energy, so that all the critical functions, the critical life functions in our body can perform. And at the same time, it's what generates our mechanisms of protection, our antibodies, for example. Okay, and what we need to do is to have this adaptable metabolism that is informed by the future, also with the experiments into the unknown with possible futures. But this means that it goes into the deep systems of the organization. I call for an acceleration of our metabolic rate. And what does that mean, the innovation metabolism? Well, it means that we need to cover 5 things. Sorry, I just went into dark, but I will continue. Our automatic lighting system, there we go. Here at the school, it's energy efficiency, by the way, it's sustainability. But go back to the innovation metabolism. Our companies, our bodies, have many chemical elements. And I call your attention to 5 critical elements of this, what I call the innovation metabolism of a company. First and foremost, and I know this is not a biological one, but I'll still use it, it's about our soul. The soul of the company, the purpose, the reason why people get out of bed every morning to go and work in the company, the reason why the company exists. It's the thing that you will remember and you will be remembered for. You will not be remembered for the EBIT that you delivered. That's not the story you will be telling your grandchildren. It was about the purpose of the organization. And if the purpose is not there, if the purpose is not clear, if the purpose is not genuine, you can have the best innovation team and you will not be able to go and be future driven. You need vision. And vision is not like the vision and mission and things like that. It's beyond that. It's about our capacity to point towards the future, both from a human perspective and an organizational perspective. Human perspective, it's the role of our leaders and how leaders need to change and behave in different ways. How leaders need to act in different ways. Without that, we will not be able to be future driven. But we also need, from an organizational standpoint, better strategies. You know, the idea of the strategic cycle, 4-year strategic cycle, that is future-proof company, that is not future-driven company. As BCG points out very well, most likely in our companies, we will need to run simultaneously different strategies for different maturity cycles, different business models, etc., etc., etc. We need to have better strategies, you know. Then We need intelligence. And the intelligence of a company is connected with its structures and its processes. We need better structures and better processes. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we need no processes. Yes, innovation hates processes. Processes, kill creativity. Wrong. You can't innovate. You can't be future-driven without processes, without structures. The problem is that the future-proof company structures were designed for command and control. They were not designed for adaptability, for empowerment, for agility. We've been hearing a lot about agility, but we have been having a hard time adapting to that. Well, we need that agility. We need good processes, better processes, structure and processes that are designed to enable, not just to control, right? So it's a change in our organizational model, right, that we need to edit. Fourth, it's our emotion. It's our capacity to have EQ, not just IQ, at the organization. And this connects with our people, the current people, the people that we have today. Most likely in many of our organizations, we might have 5 different generations working simultaneously. This is unprecedented in the history of organizations. And this generates big issues, right? But also it's the way you are able to attract talent. Because as you know, we are on a war on talent, and people are choosing where they want to work and to whom they want to work for and why they want to work in that place. And what kind of skills do we want? Do we want people that are just planners, or do we want also explorers? We will need both, but just planners, just predictability, just function-driven talent attraction, just hiring based on CV and not hiring based on skills, on capacities, on interests, on lifestyle. Well, that might be wrong. And this also connects with our culture. And the culture is most likely the most bottom-up part of this metabolism, because culture is still the way we do things around here. That needs to evolve, but it will evolve if soul, vision, and intelligence do their part. And it will evolve organically. And we will change the culture of a company slowly, very silently, very often, but that is the meaningful change. And last but not least, it's about ambition. It's about our capacity to innovate. So normally, we would jump directly into this 5th part. If we want to be future-driven, if we want to have a sound innovation strategy, if we want to prove to our shareholders that we are capable of delivering future, we will go for innovation and ambition. Not enough. It needs to be an organizational endeavor. So the next legacy is not just about the guys from innovation. It's also from the guys from the leaders. It's the people from HR. It's the people from communication, from marketing, from operations, from production, from sales. It's about every single part of our innovation metabolism. And just to wrap it up, in 3 minutes, 4 examples of companies that have been trying, more successfully, less successfully, to move from being future-proof to future-driven. And you might expect companies from Silicon Valley, but I bring you companies from Torres Novas, Campo Maior, Passos de Ferreira, and Avintes. Are all small Portuguese cities. Okay, so, and my point is that this is applicable to any company, anywhere. This is not the exclusive of the big companies, of the tech companies, of the Silicon Valley companies. It's about all companies. Let me talk about Delta. Delta, for those of you that are not Portuguese, it's a Portuguese company that used to pay salaries and distribute dividends 15 years ago with this. This is our classical way of having an espresso in Portugal. And 15 years ago, they were market leaders. This was the product. This was the thing. This was the current legacy at that moment. And what happened? Well, Nespresso happened. And Nespresso was the big disruptor. Not just because it was Nestlé competing. It's because they changed the business model. They changed even much deeper than the business model. They changed the perception that we have of the act of having an espresso. It became it was a social thing that you do outside home. Now it's a very individual thing that you do wherever you are. You don't have to go to a place to have your espresso. So they were violently disrupted by Nespresso. And I actually claim that the reason why Delta is still around and doing well, it's because it's Portugal and it's a Portuguese brand. It is a love brand, and we all love the story of Delta and the story of its founder that passed away, unfortunately, this year. So that was what, Delta hang on to. But they were disrupted. They were completely caught unprevented, right? So they had to react quick. They thought they were future-proof, and they learned in the hardest possible way that future-proof was not enough. They had to be future-driven. So the first thing they did was, pick up one of the classical innovation tools we have available. They copied, right? Delta Q is, with its adaptations, a copy of Nespresso. By the way, this is what pays salaries and distributes profits at Delta these days. Okay, they made the transition. The only similarity, it's still coffee, it's still espresso, but everything else is different. Think that, for instance, with a traditional business model, they would distribute, they would have their cars, their vans all over the country, distributing the coffee bags, the bean bags to the cafes and restaurants and things like that. With this model, they sell on retail. So the distribution model changes, the channels change. And, they had, for Nespresso, they could persuade, as they were Nestlé, and actually they designed a very good business model, they could persuade Krups and DeLonghi to build the machines. Nestlé said, build the machines, I promise you that you will have demand, because I will put the pods, the capsules, in the market. Delta was not, it's a small company. They couldn't persuade anyone to build those machines. They had to learn how to build the machine. So everything was, running behind, catching up. It's the worst place you should be. Fortunately, Delta adapted immediately. And since then, they've had what I think is one of the most outstanding innovation strategies I know. It's not just from Portugal, because first, they keep on playing with the moneymaker. The moneymaker is the capsules, but now they also have the biodegradable capsules. And now they have the capsules that have a machine that puts the coffee from beneath with Philip Stark design. They keep on investing. This is their current legacy, but they don't treat it as a sacred cow. Sorry if I don't want to offend anyone, but it's about that, right? But at the same time, Delta is experimenting. It's trying to be informing their decisions from the future. So I don't know if you know this, but you can have the coffee, iced coffee, as if you had beer. This is iced through liquid nitrogen and so on and so on and so on. And they are playing around. And they are also investing in food. They have a company that produces mushrooms that are fed from the leftovers of coffee machines and vending coffee machines, circular economy. And they have a venture capital, a corporate venture capital, and they invested in the startup. And I don't know if you know, but they are also currently a pharma company. We don't know if in 10 years, pharma will pay salaries and distribute profits at Delta, but Delta is not trying to be future-proof anymore. Delta assumed that disruption is inevitable, so they are leading their own disruption, experimenting. And the fact that they experiment with all of this, pharma, food, and so on, doesn't stop them from being outstanding with their current business model, which is Delta Q. Another example, Sograp. Sograp is an innovation project company. They were born to produce this. And this wine, this pink wine, is the most sold wine, Portuguese wine, all over the world, is a technological wine. Everything is innovation here. Okay, and this is the moneymaker. This is the sacred cow. And they play with it, even if it is sometimes hard. And even if some of these experiments are not that commercially well succeed and things like that, but they keep on playing, and they play with Porto wine. Porto wine, which is something sacred in Portugal, protected in Portugal. Well, they play with that, and they keep on evolving. But by the way, they also understand that they have an impact on the territory, on the vineyards, on the local producers. So they want to also have precision agriculture so that they are more sustainable, that have a better social impact. And for them to be super precise on agriculture, super high-tech on agriculture, they start investing in patents, R&D, nanotechnology, sensors that go on the grapes. And then they monitor everything that they do from outer space. They are way advanced in the space economy, collecting data, monitoring, and so on and so on and so on. They still produce wine. It's about wine, but, they are experimenting. They are, they realize that being future-proof might not be enough, actually, because we know that disruption to the wine sector comes from regulation. And we all know what's going on in terms of regulation. Let me talk about a company that produces toilet paper, among other things. How can you innovate with this, right? Well, you can. And you can charge $13 for 3 paper toilet rolls. This costs, I don't know, 50 cents, 60 cents. This costs $4 or something like that. And then they came up with a way to sell it all over the world and ship it through FedEx. And then anyone can buy it in a supermarket or a shopping mall or whatever. It's toilet paper on a Portuguese small company from Torres Novas. They understand that future-proof was not enough. And finally, perhaps the least known example, it's a company called Petratex, a textile company that 25 years ago paid salaries and distributed profits with this, doing these kinds of things. And they understood that they were on the bottom of the value chain. They actually produced this for Inditex mainly, and they were in the bottom of the value chain. So they understood that being future-proof, just trying to be the best at and the cheapest at doing this for Zara would not be enough. And they started experimenting. They understood that technology should be the way. They would need to incorporate value. So they patented a technology that they developed internally to eliminate sewing from the clothes, as sewing is typically a place where clothes are shattered and you have problems, and then you have people complaining to Zara and things like that. Unfortunately, the technology was too expensive, so Zara didn't want it. They moved into technical garments. Nike, Adidas, and things like that. But then eventually they were involved from beginning to end in creating what Time magazine considered in 2008 the technology of the year. This Michael Phelps swimsuit, the Speedo swimsuit that in 2008 Beijing Olympics allowed him to break I don't know how many records and have I don't know how many gold medals. This was so advanced from a technological standpoint that was even forbidden in the following year, as it was considered technological doping. All of it was developed, prototyped in a small city in Portugal with a company that nobody knows. It's Petratex. And you know what? Their turnover comes much more from developing R&D and innovation services to big textile luxury companies than of just producing shirts to Zara. And actually, if you have Patagonia, if you have a Patagonia garment, and if you know the Patagonia business model, where typically they don't want you to buy more pieces of garment, they want you to repair. The repair business model is quite hard. You'd have to, pick up the garments, take it to somewhere, and from the logistics standpoint, this is just nightmare. In Europe, it's Petratex doing it. They are reinventing themselves, going for mass personalization, repair business model, regeneration. The first time I've ever heard about blockchain, I don't know, 12 or 15 years ago, it was at Petratex, not because of cryptos, because they were looking at it for logistics and traceability, because they knew that regulation would impose that all the raw materials should be traceable to its origins, okay? And I can't tell you that much, but Petratex is also in space. So 4 interesting examples of companies that are capable of building the next legacy, that have been, adapting themselves to, not being future-proof anymore, but being future-driven, exposing to the future, exploring with the future. So this is the fundamental idea that is behind the next legacy and the innovation and metabolism, which is a concept that is now also, well, it will be my book next year, but here at Nova, we also transformed this into a 3.5-day executive program that will be delivered next May. That has an interesting calendar that covers the 5 elements of the metabolism in 3.5 days, and then with 6 more weeks additional of coaching sessions. Again, it will happen next May, in May next year. So I'll stop my presentation here and let's go for the questions. Thank you for your attention. Sorry, I was a little bit too long. And Rita, what's the deal?
No problem at all, Rui. Thank you very much for this presentation. How can this program help us to get this notion of the next legacy in our companies?
Well, it's exploring all of these concepts that I've just covered. So we go in depth into each of the 5 elements of the metabolism to understand what are the implications in the way we lead teams, in the way we build the processes, and the way we establish the deep systems of the organization. So it's very actionable, and the overall idea is that the transition from the future-proof company to the future-driven company requires this next legacy action plan with a concrete roadmap that can be, implemented, that can be actionable. So in some sense, the program is not that much lecture-based. It's very hands-on. We benefit from the perspectives of other people than me, Miguel Pinicunha, Nadim Habib, but also practitioners that we are inviting. We have breakfasts every single morning with a practitioner. We will have a CEO, a chief people officer, and a chief innovation officer. They all have roles, important roles in the next legacy. So the program builds this reflection, but especially you get a concrete and specific takeaway home, which is your next legacy action plan. And then after the 3.5 days, we support that action plan by mentoring during 6 weeks and advising so that you really can transform the program, not just into a new mindset and a new skill set, but especially into a new tool set that can be real useful for the company.
Okay, great. We have 2 more questions. One is, what's the price of the program? And the other one is the program online or here at Nova?
Sorry, can you repeat, Rita? Sorry?
Yes, of course. If the program is going to be online or in
the program is presential. It's an immersive experience here in the campus, it takes advantage of the location. We start the program actually in what we call the collision room, where we really understand how we can be disrupted, and we make this, very hard exercise, but hopefully very useful exercise of writing the obituary of our own companies. And we start with that exercise, and then we take it from there. But presential activity, the coaching sessions then are online.
And just the price of the program, Rui, please.
It's so you can enroll individually, and the price is 3,000 euros. But then the best way to take advantage of the program is actually if you enroll in teams. We strongly encourage teams of 3 people, because as you can take home an action plan that you can really implement. It can be useful to come in groups of 3. So we encourage that enrollment, but if you want to enroll individually, you can, and that is the price tag. If you enroll in teams of 3, there's a special discount for that.
That's it. Well, thank you very much again. We are heading now to the end of this session that which we hope has been inspiring. I would like to thank you all for your participation, and hope to see you soon in Carcavelos. Bye-bye.